got the book Rosie Revere, Engineer by Andrea Beaty. And I'm going to show you exactly what questions to ask while you read this book with your kids so that you're getting the most out of reading comprehension. The themes in this book are embracing failure as a part of the learning process, the importance of perseverance, the power of creative problem solving, redefining mistakes and like seeing failure as a stepping stone, overcoming fear, trying again, perseverance, growth mindset, creativity, STEM curiosity, resourcefulness, innovation. Lots of great themes in this book. One other important thing you should know about this book is that, well, I guess you don't need to know it, but it's actually written in iambic pentameter. So like if you remember from reading Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth and Hamlet in high school. So it's written with a cadence and it has a rhyme scheme, AABB, which is actually really good for a young reader because the cadence and the rhyme scheme and the fact that it's actually like written with meter is going to boost a kid's phonemic awareness. So the fact that the book is written like this is actually really good for a kid's like hearing and like listening to the language development, which is really important for reading. All right. So first question, central idea. What problem is Rosie facing? What is getting in her way? What does she want to do? Okay, the problem she's facing is that she is very creative, she is very innovative, she's being very resourceful, but she has all of these ideas and she hides them. It says that she doesn't like go into her like engineer stash and start creating things until she's basically by herself. So the problem she has is that she's got all this creative energy, all this innovation, all these resources that she like hoards her little engineering supplies, but she's too afraid to tell anybody that she's creating anything. Next question. Central idea. What is getting in Rosie's way? So here we see the history of why Rosie is always doing her creations and her innovations and her engineering in secret. It's because of this incident with her uncle. Her uncle Fred laughed at one of her inventions. So here we have the themes coming about the fear of making mistakes, just fear in general of like failure, and not seeing failure and problems and mistakes as just like part of the process, but seeing them as like a personal failure, like I'm bad at this, I shouldn't be doing this. So this is what is actually getting in her way, is this memory of her uncle. And then like that kind of changed her perspective on all of her creative and engineering endeavors. Next question, character relationships. Do you think Aunt Rose will help Rosie? So down here is where Aunt Rose kind of plants a seed here, but she's also given up on it. So we can see like what's she gonna pick up on? Is Rosie gonna pick up on like, oh, that's a good idea? Or is she gonna pick up on the fact that her Aunt Rose had the idea but then like has given up on the idea? And yeah, I'll read it with the meter so you can like hear the iambic pentameter and like the rhyme scheme. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams. So the entire story should be read with that rhythm and meter. So, because that's how it was written. Okay, so again, do you think Aunt Rose is gonna help or hurt? Because Aunt Rose had this idea like, I want to fly, but I'm an old lady and like that's just a dream, so whatever. Or is Rosie gonna hear that idea and be like, oh, that's actually a good idea, let's act on it? It's kind of a prediction, so you can probably guess that she is going to act on it. Next question, analyze point of view. How do Rosie and Aunt see the idea of flying differently? Okay, so here we start to get to the themes of trying again, creative problem solving, curiosity, perseverance, because as her Aunt Rose was like, oh, I'd love to fly, but I'm an old lady, that's silly, I'm not gonna do that. Rosie sees it differently. She sees it as a creative problem to solve. She sees it like, oh, well, I'm gonna try again. Like you tried, you didn't do it, and you've like kind of given up on it, but like I can try this again. So she's curious how to do it, and she like shows her perseverance. So here we see like the positive side of her, like her curiosity, her creative problem solving, her resourcefulness, her innovation. So Aunt Rosie was good because she gave her the idea, and Rosie did not just like immediately give up on the idea, as her Aunt Rose had kind of decided to. Next question, analyze point of view. How do Rose and Aunt Rose view the helicopter fail differently? So on the previous few pages, Rosie had designed this helicopter, drafted this helicopter, built this helicopter, and did her first test flight, got like this far off the ground, and then failed, and then it like fell. And she was like, I'm a failure, I shouldn't do this, I'm done, I made mistakes, this isn't happening. But Aunt Rose saw it from a completely different perspective. She said it was a wonderful first failure. And basically like reaffirmed the idea that failure is part of your process. Lots of themes developing here. I'm telling her she needs to persevere, that this is just part of creative problem solving, redefining mistakes and failure as a stepping stone, not an ending point. Overcoming the fear of failure, trying again, perseverance, growth mindset, all of these things. So of course, Aunt Rosie is helping her, even though they had a very different point of view. Here, Aunt Rose is stepping out as a mentor and pushing Rosie forward with a lot of encouragement. Next question, integrate visual information. What role do the illustrations play in describing Rosie's trial and error process as an engineer? So this is a little aside illustration. It is adjacent to the plot. It doesn't really actually impact the plot, but it shows all of the female engineers of flying machines, a bunch of female pilots of flying machines. So the illustration plays the role of describing Rosie as an engineer, as putting her like among these historical women engineers and pilots, and like just putting her among that group. So little like women engineer, women in STEM empowerment here. Next question, central idea. What does Rosie and the reader learn through the story? So in the end, she goes to school and she's got this great project and she's proud of it. At the beginning, we saw a big change. At the beginning, she was at school and she had these ideas for projects, but she hid them from everybody. And now at the end of the book, she's sharing her engineering projects with everybody. So now we see that she is no longer afraid to share her engineering projects with people, whether they're successes or failures. She now sees failure as part of the process, and really we're hitting on all of the themes by the end. She has learned to redefine mistakes as part of the process. She's learned to see failure as a stepping stone, not a finish line. Persevering, the power of creative problem solving, creativity, perseverance, growth mindset, and essentially overcoming the fear of trying again, and like overcoming the, I guess, she's not ashamed to fail. She's not sad to fail. She sees that as part of the process. And that is Rosie Revere, Engineer by Andrea Beaty.